are you? Good to see everybody. Hi, Kimmers. How you doing? Welcome, welcome. Hello, lurkers. Hello, everybody. Please do not be afraid to chat. This is a very friendly, welcoming space. I, unlike certain other content creators, do not spy on other people's chats and then um, castigate them for going into chats, even of content creators I don't like. That's not my style. So I know that other people do this in an effort to either suppress the view count on my channel or outright kill it. But nope. If I come in here and there's one person in chat, I will stream. So don't be shy. Go ahead, chat. We are going to have fun today. Hello, Canadian. It's good to see you. So I linked a hello, Denise from Beantown. Good to see you. Buenas tardes. All right. I have linked an article in chat. I'm sorry. I've linked an article in the description box, and I will give you a summary of it. But you guys can read it at your leisure. Hello, Dumb Blonde. How are you? Oh, it's okay, Dumb Blonde. You can listen in the background. That's fine. I only said that at the beginning because there are certain people who like to troll through people's chats, and they like to single out people who are chatting in my community because they're pieces of shit. Not the chatters, but the people who point it out. All right, so I'm going to read you a summary of this article. New research from the University of Texas shows that all the justifications for mutilating children were lies. They analyzed more than 100,000 patients with gender dysphoria and looked at the outcomes for those who received surgery versus those who didn't. Depression, anxiety, suicidal feelings, and drug abuse were all significantly higher for those who received surgery compared to those who didn't. Let's repeat that. Treating gender dysphoria with sex change surgery was linked with drastically worse mental health outcomes. Okay. Now, this is not to say that sex change operations are not beneficial to a very small number of people. Transgenderism has always been recognized as um, a condition tied to gender dysphoria. And for people who are genuinely dysphoric, yes, it is possible to go through the surgery. Hi, Jen. God, I haven't seen you in a dog's age. It is so good to see you. Hi, Jen. Good to see you. Long time no see. And for people who genuinely have gender dysphoria, it can be beneficial. Absolutely. The problem is now with self ID and with younger and younger and younger people getting diagnosed sometimes within 30 minutes of seeing a therapist. What we have now is a lot of confused kids who think that they are gender dysphoric, but they're really not. And you don't even have to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria. You can just stand up and declare, I am whatever, and you will be taken at your word. Hey, Anna. Hi, love. So it stands to reason that if you've got a kid who is reporting to a clinic and they have all these issues, whether they come from foster care, whether they are autistic, whether they have experienced some sort of essay or something of that nature, that instead of treating the underlying issues, you immediately put these kids on drugs, that is a problem. That is a problem. And what we're seeing now is that people who rush into a surgical intervention, and we know for a fact that there are very, very young people who are getting the surgery, particularly girls with the double mastectomies and so on, that you are going to find that there is buyer's remorse, and there are people who are going to want to reverse the surgeries because they were wrong. And what was actually bothering them was not related to gender dysphoria, but it was related to sometimes internalized homophobia, sometimes a feeling of just general discomfort in the body, which I think happens to pretty much everybody who goes through puberty, which is a really tough time. Um, yeah, I know. I remember that there was a requirement that you had to live as a member of the opposite sex for a certain period of time in order to determine whether or not you were actually serious and it wasn't just a passing fancy. So, hey, no, thank you. Good to see you. Now, what we have today, I saw this video yesterday. Okay. And what I am showing you today is probably the most insane take yet. And we've seen insane takes. I mean, I've played plenty of insane takes on this channel. This one takes the fucking cake. Now, keep in mind that polling is consistent in this country. Upwards of 80% of people polled in the United States of America have said that males should not compete against females in sports. It is probably one of the few issues that the vast majority of Americans agree on. And to continue pushing this point of trying to sort of force women and girls to play against males is a loser. It's a loser. It's a non starter. And there is no amount of gaslighting, persuasion, arm twisting, nothing that can persuade Americans that this is a good idea. At every level of sport, from professional to semi pro, all the way down to like elementary school, basically. And I've seen people come up with this idiotic response that, well, don't a lot of kids play co ed sports when they're in elementary school? I mean, I did because I went to a tiny private school and there were like 20 people in my class. And so, the boys and the girls played together, but there came a point in not even in junior high. I mean, I left that school in high school. But in high school, the sports were strictly segregated. Boys and girls did not play together. There weren't any boys in the girls' locker rooms, nothing like that, um, for obvious reasons, right? Well, let's take a look at this person. Now, I don't know if you guys have been aware of this, but TYT has been having some problems. Certain staff members at TYT have been pushing back against Cenk and Anna, who suddenly woke up and smelled the coffee and said, holy shit, maybe we need to rethink some of the positions that we have been pushing on our show. Maybe we're the problem. Maybe we're the ones who are out of touch and not the entire rest of the country. So I found this video and I thought it was fucking hilarious. It's by Actual Justice Warrior. His channel is linked in the description. And I thought we would take a look at it because I could not believe what I was hearing when I listened to or I watched this video last night. So let's go.
But you're so dumb. You're so dumb. I don't even know how to explain it to you anymore. Unless, this is the other option, unless you also are a transphobe.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Unless you also are kind of a misogynist.
So that right there is Francesca Fiorentini being very, 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 very angry at Cenk Uygur for daring to not mention her by name, but mention the absolutely stupid and ridiculous stance that Francesca took on a previous Piers Morgan episode about how the top male athletes who are dominating the males division should be allowed in her perfect world, if they declare themselves to be a woman, to compete on the female teams. This is something that Francesca Fiorentini 100% said. But she's mad at Cenk Uygur for bringing it up in a podcast because how dare Cenk Uygur ever actually note the ridiculous positions that this woman takes? Now,
it's funny to me that has anyone noticed how angry people get when you play a clip of something that they said out of their own mouth and then, or you quote them, and the person will come back absolutely infuriated and try to throw around ad homs and try to throw around ist and phobe accusations, instead of explaining why they said what they said. We've seen this over and over and over again. People do not like to be confronted with their own words. They accuse you of stalking. They accuse you of whatever, you know. So this is what happened to this Francesca person. She went on Piers Morgan and she showed her entire ass and took a position so extreme that no sane person could agree with her. So let's continue.
We're going to talk about this. We are going to break this down. We're going to talk about Francesca's meltdown
Hi,
after
Heidi,
Jen
Heidi.
Uger brought up how absurd this is. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
You know they're people, right? Like, I guess I just want to, if there are transphobes watching, like, you do know that, like, trans people are people. Like they have feelings, they are bullied, they bleed, they feel bad about themselves.
Who is disputing this? It's a straw man argument. Who is disputing this? That is not the issue. And I hate it when they do this. I hate this. Oh, you know, trans people are people. Who said that they're not? It's absurd. It has nothing to do with the central argument.
They strive, they train. You know, they're like, I just wanted to make sure we know they're people.
So again, I will emphasize this because a lot of people, including myself, before I was informed of this fact, would be confused because Francesca Fiorentini, even though she acts like a child, even though she looks like somebody in her late 20s, early 30s, is actually over 40 years old.
And you know what's even more unbelievable than the fact that she's 41? She does look very, very young for her age. Is the fact that she considers herself to be a comedian. And I don't think that I have ever heard this woman say anything funny. But let's go on.
So all of this acting from her is just a show of her complete and utter lack of maturity. Now, of course, she starts off by talking about how the transes actually are people and the transes have feelings, which again, nobody is disputing at all whatsoever. When we're talking about the conversation of sports, we understand that men are more athletic on average. And when you get to the professional level, those gaps widen than women. Therefore, it is completely unfair to have them compete against women. The entire point of male sports, also known as sports, is to maximize competition. If any woman is able to compete on the men's team, I say you allow her to compete on the men's team. However, that does not appear to be the case.
Remember the good old days when we took this for granted? Remember the good old days when we understood that there were two sexes and that we could not combine them in sports that involve strength and or speed? Remember that? It seems like it was an age ago. And I swear to God, I feel like I'm living in cloud cuckoo land. I felt like that for quite some time now, ever since this issue became an issue.
And by contrast, for female sports, for them to exist, they have to exclude males from those sports. These are basic premises, basic ideas. Everybody understands this. But Francesca Fiorentini, of course, stupidly, like the idiot that she is, decided to say that the top male athletes should be allowed to come in and dominate female sports. And then she got mad that Cenk referenced this as a stupid argument because how dare you mention things that she actually said. But what I find even funnier than this is that she is upset that she was even asked this hypothetical because how dare you try to put her beliefs to the test as she doubles down on her stupid beliefs.
Now, Piers Morgan has come equipped with a list of athletes, famous male athletes, that he wants to ask me, the resident lib, whether or not if they transitioned, which was very important to say, that I would allow them to play in whatever sport.
I have to give Piers Morgan a lot of credit. I really do. Because it would never have occurred to me to ask these questions. And I think that this was a stroke of genius. And I think that this same question should be asked of all of these extreme, loony lefties who honestly believe that there is no difference between men and women when it comes to sports involving strength and speed. I think the same question should be posed to all of them. So hats off to Piers Morgan. I think that you scored a big one here.
And he thinks he's got a gotcha. Now, here's the problem. This is a bullshit premise. This is a bad faith premise. When he's coming with his list of who I...
Oh my God, Scarlett Vetter. Scarlett Vetter, are you the person who is the archiver? Hang on a second. Let me look you up. Because if so, I want to give your channel a shout out. I'm sorry to... Oh, you're not? All right, never mind. There's another Scarlett something who's an archiver who is very, very clever and shady. All right, well, welcome to you anyway. It's good to have you here. Let's go.
I would or wouldn't. What am I supposed to do as someone who thinks that, sure, if Messi tomorrow put on a skirt and said, I'm a woman, simply as, like, let's say he did it as an anti-trans gag, right? Or not, or maybe whatever. Would I be like, nah, I don't know about that. You know, have you done hormones? Have you been on hormones for like 3 to 6 months? What are the regulations of U.S. women's soccer? You know, is there any kind of bar or testing, whatever it is, right?
Okay, the question is, if Lionel Messi, who is the greatest male soccer player in the world, if he were to announce that he's a woman, should he be allowed to play on a women's soccer team? And now she's parsing it. Well, is he on hormones? People like this don't understand basic biology. Once a man has gone through puberty, the hormones do nothing to reverse his ability to the point, or his advantages. The bones, the heart, the lungs, muscles, everything else that would make him able to compete against women in an equitable way. It doesn't do anything. But she's convinced that all you need to do is pop some Premarin for a year or so, bring your testosterone level down to a certain point, and Bob's your uncle. No, madam, that is not how it works. Let's continue.
That's not the answer you should give. You shouldn't give an answer like, well, I mean, if Messi, who I guess does kind of have some feminine characteristics, were to, you know, do an estrogen regimen for, you know, 6 to 12 months, then I would definitely be okay with them, you know, with her, I guess at this point, playing for U.S. women's soccer. Like, that would be okay with me. That's not the answer. But if Usain Bolt were to do it, I mean, I probably wouldn't allow him to do it. Or like Michael Phelps shouldn't be allowed to swim in women's swimming because
why not?
His ankles go back in the opposite direction. So
no,
I
that's
guess
not why.
I guess I would say like yes to Messi, no to Usain Bolt, and probably also no. Like, that's not the answer you should give.
Again, I will emphasize, even though Francesca looks like she's in her late 20s and maybe early 30s absolute maximum, that she is somebody who is over the age of 40. She is supposed to be a mature adult, but the fact of the matter is, she is expressing her total lack of connection to a reality, her total lack of maturity right here in this very moment. She is very, very upset that Piers Morgan asked her these questions with ridiculous premises.
Right.
However, she's the one who doubled down on those ridiculous premises, which was the whole point of him asking her to see if she would bite the bullet. And then
well, I mean, there's a reason to ask this question, and it's a very good one, which is that if you truly believe that a person can strip away their physical advantages by taking hormones for a few months and by standing up and declaring themselves to be a member of the opposite sex, then why wouldn't you agree to allowing the top male athletes in the world to compete against women if they fulfill those criteria? I mean, this is a position that people like Francesca have taken and many others. I find that position to be utterly untenable and ridiculous for very obvious reasons. But Francesca believes it. So let's see if she can maintain the consistency of her beliefs. Let's go.
She did, and now she's upset that she did that. But of course, she blames everyone and anyone but herself, because Francesca Fiorentini is an absolute child. She's an absolute baby. She's an absolute brat who can't take any accountability for her own actions or the things that she said.
I'm a big Messi fan, so. But let me just explain this to
Answer
you.
my question. Would you allow him, if he said I'm a woman, to play in the American women's
You're
national
using the wrong
team?
pronoun
Yes, right now. Hell yeah. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Messi on the U.S. women's national team? Hell yeah.
Would you
because
allow
that would
Usain
mean-
Bolt to do that and be in the sprinting
Yes,
team?
because that would mean they're a trans woman. They identify as women.
I get
You would have
it.
to
So just to be clear,
transition.
you would let Lionel Messi play in the
Okay, then the other guy agrees with me. And so I was like, yes, if he
The other guy who agreed with her is a troll and a shit stirrer that Piers Morgan, for some reason, keeps on putting on panel because he knows that the guy is going to come on and make outrageous statements and people are going to leave tons of comments under the video because the guy never takes a position that makes sense, or rarely does. Let's put it that way. So, to review, she believes that Lionel Messi, the world's greatest male soccer player, Usain Bolt, the world's fastest human, or at least he was at one time. He may be a little long in the tooth now, but still, even Usain Bolt right now in the year 2025 should be able to declare themselves to be women, take hormones, maybe not, I don't know. And we have to call them she and allow them to compete against women. This is what she believes. And she's mad that Piers Morgan backed her into a corner and forced her to admit it. Are these examples absurd? Of course they are, but so is her position. So he's doing it to test her and see if there is any point at which she says, no, that sounds a little bit ridiculous. Nope. Let's continue.
transitioned and she is she, that's fine. Undergoing hormone therapy passes the bar. Whatever, again, whatever the guidelines are for that sport, I'm okay with that because I don't believe trans people should be barred from playing in any sport or being in any walk of life.
Okay, there you go.
The way a cis person is.
All you had to do, Francesca, is say that Floyd Mayweather would not be able to declare himself a woman and beat the crap out of females in boxing. That's all you had to do.
Hang on.
To get a ticket, which would suck.
I want to do a little checklist here. You'd let Usain Bolt compete as a sprinter in the American women's Olympic team?
Yes.
Okay. You would
Yes.
let Floyd Mayweather compete as a boxer in the women's American boxing
Yeah.
team?
Yeah,
You
of
are
course
a
you have to be
complete
like the
and utter
heavyweight.
lunatic.
I
She
completely
is.
agree with
Lunacy.
Francesca. I agree with Francesca. And I go
They
further,
would
actually,
have
Piers.
to
You always...
transition.
All you had to do was say that Lionel Messi should not be able to compete on the soccer team. Maybe if you were an actual comedian, which you pretend to be, you would point out that he wouldn't play for the U.S. soccer team. He would actually play for the Argentinian soccer team. But I
Yeah.
guess that was too far beyond your ability to think. You couldn't even joke your way out of it. But instead, you doubled down on the stupidest premise. And what happens as a result of that? You are the poster child for idiots who are buying into this 80-20 issue that is going against you, and we're all laughing about it. And Cenk ends up citing this as an example, who, by the way, you've been attacking repeatedly, despite the fact that he put you on TYT, ended up helping you out throughout the course of your career. But now that it's convenient for you to backstab him, you've decided to do so, and now you're very, very upset that on an issue that you're an absolute doofus on, he's pointing it out.
So he
Imagine that you decide to die on this hill and go after pretty much your boss repeatedly on the internet over an issue that is dead in the water. This is the hill you're going to die on. This extremely, not only are males in women's sports, not only is that a non-starter, not only is that incredibly unpopular, she is taking the most extreme, most illogical, most brain-busting, absurd, extreme position on an incredibly unpopular issue. It's mind-boggling, and I am enjoying every second of it. Imagine those staff meetings.
he comes in armed with that. And it's like,
Hey,
oh,
Poppy.
now we got you and we're going to use it in the cold open. You look so stupid. You look so dumb.
You
You
did.
giving me hypotheticals and me changing my position based on your dumbass hypotheticals is a bad look. It's a bad
No, it
look
isn't.
politically. It's a
No.
bad look morally.
No, it
And it's a
isn't.
bad look argumentatively.
No, it
But
isn't.
on all those things, like, I don't change my stances when something happens. When something hypothetical happens, it's not going to make me change my stances. Or it's just some story. One time I heard one time an undocumented person killed this woman. Therefore, every undocumented person should be killed. That's not how
Nobody
I roll.
said that.
That's not how most progressives should roll.
Okay, well, the thing is, it's not hypothetical. What happened to my big boy? He's in DC. And actually, Jen, I'm glad that you brought that up because I am planning on bringing him for yet another visit. You weren't here when I showed him. He was here in November of last year. And I streamed and I showed him. He's very well. He just turned 11. Oh, no, he's going to turn 11 this year. He's going to be 11 years old in May. And he is as frisky and lively as a pup. So he's doing very well. Thank you for asking. All right. It's amazing. The thing is, Francesca Fiorentini, it is not hypothetical because we saw this play out at the Olympics. We saw it. We saw biological males win medals for beating up women. And that's not even Floyd Mayweather. That's not even Mike Tyson at his advanced age, who could probably kill a woman if he got into the ring with her. So it's not hypothetical at all. It's not absurd. We've seen it with our own eyes, and the world reacted very, very negatively to the boxing event at the Olympics in Paris.
But of course, I made a mistake, according to Mr. Cenk Uygur, who was on a former host of The Biggest Loser, Jillian Michaels' new show.
Okay.
Where she offers lots of sound advice on how to be a perfect... I don't know what she talks about. I really don't care.
So right here in the setup for Cenk's clip where Cenk is making perfect sense, she ends up talking in a little beba voice because, of course, she has to infantilize herself as much as possible in order to be rescued by other people who have IQs that are in at least the 3 digits, unlike Francesca Fiorentini herself. And this is how she operates on her stupid podcast on her own when she doesn't have the backing and the production value of TYT. She talks in a little nasally voice because she's like, oh, Cenk Uygur made fun of my position that is completely indefensible because I'm an idiot, because my name's Francesca Fiorentini and I can't take it. So I'm going to say, oh no, people are literally dying because nobody agrees with me that Floyd Mayweather should be able to beat up the ladies.
Talked about me. He talked about me. He invoked my name. One of
Right.
our hosts. First of all,
Oh,
I've never
no.
been a full-time host. So once again, one of our mercenaries. But let me just caveat this by saying, don't ever speak for me. Don't ever use me. We are not the same. We've proven this
No,
many
you're
times
not.
over. We are not the same. We don't come from the same cloth. And so I would like you to don't claim you sort of like, well, one of our hosts. I'm not, there's no hour. There's no hour. This is not a weird you speaking for Anna. You guys are the same person, Tweedledee, Tweedledum type situation, okay? I am a me. You can call me by my name. My name is Francesca.
So you can tell that Francesca is
Oh.
completely lost in the wilderness right here, and she doesn't know how to react to Cenk Uygur bringing up her actual stated position,
Right.
because it's so ridiculous on the Jillian Michaels podcast, because Francesca is getting very, very angry at the fact that Cenk said one of our hosts, which, by the way, is just accurate. She was
Right,
a host
she is.
at TYT,
Yeah.
still is a host, I think, on the Damage Report, which is under the umbrella of TYT, and there's nothing objectionable about this, but she's like, yo, you're not like me, there's no we, You can't say our. I'm very offended by that, despite the fact that Cenk is drawing a distinction between him and one of the hosts at his network, Francesca Fiorentini, who's very upset all of a sudden that she didn't get a full-time position at the network, which, by the way, why would you ever hire this person even part-time, even as a contractor at the network? She calls herself a mercenary, and she's very upset about that. But I'm sorry, Francesca, when you provide no value, when you provide negative value to the network, there's no reason for you to be hired on board. You could have decided to leave at any time. In fact, now all of a sudden you're drawing the distinction between you and Cenk and Anna, going out of your way to insult them, that you've teamed up with Mehdi Hassan on their new network. So
yeah, Mehdi Hassan. Mehdi Hassan, imagine teaming up with that scumbag. I have long disliked Mehdi Hassan. Mehdi Hassan is a wolf in sheep's clothing. You know, Mehdi Hassan has portrayed himself as a fair and reasonable journalist. He is not. Mehdi Hassan is a propagandist, and now he started a new network called whatever, which is deeply, deeply, deeply anti-Semitic. It's a propaganda outfit. That's all it is. So good work. It's probably very well financed, probably by Qatar, or God only knows who his donors are. But okay, Francesca.
Yeah, Francesca, calm it down, relax. He just said our host because that's understandable. And you're like, oh, he called me out by name, so I'm upset. And then later on in this part of the video, you mentioned that he didn't mention your name. And that's also why you're upset. That's also why you're angry. But again, the real reason you're angry is because you took a stupid ass position on the Piers Morgan show. You walked right into the trap. Everybody's making fun of you. And it's completely and utterly indefensible.
Yep.
So some on the left, I mean, one of our hosts, Piers Morgan, asked her, so are you okay with Leo Messi playing in women's sports? And by the way, he said in the most extreme way, if he declared himself a woman tomorrow, even without hormone therapy or anything.
Doesn't work. First of all, that's not what happened. You guys just saw what happened, right? He said if Lionel Messi tomorrow, he didn't say without hormone therapy. I said if he transitioned, caveat. If he transitioned, yes.
I'm telling you, I could give you 19 different.
Which is still an idiotic, absurd, counterintuitive, ridiculous, and extreme position. There is no amount of HRT in the world that could reverse Lionel Messi's incredible physical advantage over women. There's nothing. It doesn't exist. But okay, Francesca, I know that she's butthurt, but come on now.
Studies that
Okay.
show it's
So-
not effective.
So first of all, my opinion is, are you nuts?
Right.
Like if you put Messi in, he'd score 20 goals a game. If you put LeBron in the WNBA,
Right.
with or without hormones, he'd score 200 points a night.
So one of the things that I will point out is the question was from Piers Morgan if he transitioned tomorrow, and Francesca makes the idea, oh well, if he actually did transition, then she would be okay with it, as if that changes anything of the sort. But I also want to point out that Jillian Michaels is not listening to Cenk
Not
at
at
all
all.
whatsoever, because Cenk gives the setup for the premise, and then Jillian Michaels is like, oh, I have 19 different studies that show that doesn't work. When again, Cenk is talking about somebody not even taking any kind of hormone suppressors or anything
Right.
of the sort, just going from the male side to the female side. So if you weren't a humorless wretch, if you were actually a comedian instead of an alleged comedian like Francesca Fiorentini is, you would point out that Jillian Michaels is not even listening to Cenk. She's actively just waiting to talk, and that's like a funny component of this that is just not included in anybody's commentary. But I just want you guys to go to this original clip and point out that Jillian is not paying attention
Not at all.
really to a word that Cenk is saying. She essentially got triggered by Lionel Messi women's team, and
Right.
all of a sudden she's like, I got all the studies and all the data that shows that that's wrong, even though we all understand that men better athletes than women.
So first of all,
Doris.
my opinion is, are you nuts? Like if you put Messi in, he'd score 20 goals a game. If you put LeBron in the WNBA,
Right.
with or without hormones, he'd score 200 points a night.
Okay. I'm sorry. This is full disclosure here. I like men's soccer. Okay.
So
I
do
watch
I.
men's soccer.
So
And
do
I
I.
don't support women's soccer as much as I should. I just want to be honest with that.
Nobody
okay?
cares.
I just gonna be completely 100%. Like I've seen, like I haven't seen a Galaxy game, but I'm not a big sports person, number one, but I love soccer. I love
do I.
Argentine soccer, especially.
do
I
I.
like the World Cup, all that.
So
Me
first of all,
too.
Cenk is 100% right on this. If you put one of the best, if not the best soccer player, or one of the best, if not the best athlete in whatever sport on a women's team or playing against the women's team, he would absolutely dominate in ways that are cartoonish. And one of the things
Right.
that I find hilarious is that Francesca Fiorentini is going to admit that she doesn't watch women's soccer. She doesn't watch these women's sports. She's not into it herself, which is one of the disingenuous ways that they try to attack people who are concerned about this, as if the issue is the viewing pleasure of the audience rather than the fairness, rather than the scholarships,
Of
rather
course.
than their injury risks that are all made worse by the fact that you have biological
Yep.
men competing against women. In addition to that, again, I will emphasize the whole entire premise of men's sports is maximum competition. Anybody's allowed in there. The whole premise of female sports is limited competition. Specifically, men are not allowed in there because without that limit, you would not have female sports. Do we all understand how these two different leagues are not parallels? They're not equivalents on each side. They are alternate goals that are being met, one by including everyone, the other by excluding men specifically.
I have watched U.S. women's champions. What are we, 4, 5-time champions?
So have I.
Nobody fucking cares. Every time the U.S. women's soccer team wins yet another World Cup,
Yeah.
we don't talk about it. We don't herald it. We
Well-
judge them because they, did something against Trump or they knelt for the national anthem. That's the only time we talk about women's sports.
Well, I seem to recall one year that the women's team won the international championship, and it was a huge, huge, huge deal. And it wasn't just because, was it Brandy Chastain who whipped her jersey off? It wasn't just because of that. It was an amazing match. I watched the whole thing, and it was incredible. No, it's because women's sports are not viewed as widely as men's sports, especially in soccer. That's just the way it is. And it's that way with the WNBA. It's just a fact of life.
Or because we want to make Caitlin Clark some sort of, white damsel in distress against a bunch of black, WNBA players. That's the only time we talk about women's sports.
So again, Francesca
Here
goes
we
on to this
go.
whole rant about how
Of course, we have to bring race into it. No, that's not what happened with Caitlin Clark. That is not what happened. That is a completely dishonest retelling of Caitlin Clark's experience in the WNBA, but I think that Sean is going to explain it.
people don't care about the Women's World Cup. Well, sad day. That's just the reality. And then she talks about the only reason people care about the WNBA with Caitlin Clark is because they could be racist to black women. And again, it is the black female WNBA players, the non-straight black female WNBA players, that are going after Caitlin Clark and saying that her fan base is in fact racist, when in reality, she is one of the first NBA players, or WNBA players, excuse me, major difference right there, that is able to carry a fan base from college into the WNBA. It should be good for all of the WNBA, but these petulant children that are in that particular league can't stand the fact that somebody with her level of talent and skill has brought fans into the league, so they decide to complain about evil white racism. And guess what? Francesca Fiorentini right here playing into that narrative. There is no bad argument, there is no bad position that this woman would not take, and it's absolutely embarrassing to see her do this time and time again. But let us get to her overall point.
But the idea that Lionel Messi would score 20 points, 20 goals if he played in the U.S. women's team, like what, like a friendly, is bullshit.
No,
I'm
it isn't.
sorry.
No,
Like,
it isn't.
Do you know how many points are scored in soccer generally?
Yeah. Sometimes a match can be won 1-0, but you know why? Because he's playing against other men. He's playing against other male professional soccer players. That's why. If he played with the women, absolutely. 20 points? I can see it. I mean, if you want to split the baby, you can say, all right, maybe he would just score 10. It would be very, very high. All right. It would be very high. I think that it is absurd and naive to suggest that Lionel Messi would not have a tremendous advantage if he were playing against women. This is childish. It's absolutely childish. Let's continue.
Do you understand how they work? Like, I'm not saying you wouldn't do well. I could see him getting like 6 off.
That's
20?
a lot, though.
What do you like? This is like so stupid. Like, who do you think the women's team are? Do you
6 goals in soccer is a lot of fucking goals, lady. And you say that you watch soccer? 6 goals by one player in one match? It's a lot. It's a lot.
think like female athletes just aren't good athletes? 'Cause
No.
I'm starting to feel like you think female athletes aren't good athletes.
So one of the great things about people
No, it has nothing to do with being a good athlete. They're good athletes in terms of other women, but they cannot compete against men. They can't. They can't. I mean, I remember years ago when Serena Williams was on a late night show, and she openly admitted that there is absolutely no way that she could beat any of the top male tennis players. There's no way. She was very blunt about it. And she is probably the greatest female tennis star that's ever lived. But she is very, very realistic about her limitations. Within the women's category, she is incredible. But if she were to compete against anybody, any of the top male athletes, tennis players, she wouldn't be able to do it. And the rules in men's and women's tennis are different. So it's childish. I mean, if a fucking female athlete is telling you that she would not be able to compete at that level with a man, then why are people like Francesca, who is not an athlete, trying to deny that reality?
People like Francesca Fiorentini who don't know anything about sports, who are absolute idiots from top to bottom, is that you can ask every single question that they put forward right back to them, and they would be baffled by the actual answer. Right there, she said, Cenk, who do you think the Women's World Cup final team actually is? And the question should be asked right back to Francesca, because the answer to it, who they actually are, is quite telling. Because guess what? FC Dallas ran a boys under 15 team against the World Cup winning champions. They beat them 5-2.
Amazing.
Under 15-year-olds, boys, beat the Women's World Cup Championship team that represents the whole country, the best and brightest, the most talented
Kids.
of all the women, 5-2. The game wasn't even close. Now, 15-year-olds just from one city in the United States of America, Dallas, Texas, can smoke, can humiliate, can utterly destroy a World Cup winning female team. What do you think an actual top-tier professional soccer player who's the best at his craft would do if he was put on one of the teams? He'd absolutely obliterate them. Who do you...
Or you can look at the situation at UPenn with Leah Thomas beating Olympic medalists in the pool. There's another example. See, these are not far-fetched examples. We've seen it with our own eyes. We've seen it play out.
Do you think the women's team are? Do you think like female athletes just aren't good athletes?
20 goals is not outside what you would expect
Right.
from this kind of player being added into the league. Francesca Fiorentini just has no understanding at all whatsoever
No.
of the great differences between biological males and females.
Mhm.
And again, soccer is a perfect example of this. The way that the women's national World Cup winning team has performed against boys 14 and under
Mhm.
is a great example of this, but she
Yep.
doesn't know any of that. So instead, she gets very, very offended on behalf of the fact that Cenk Uygur touched on a reality.
Okay, and you could, and I've read the studies. They always say, "Oh, there's studies," and they never read them. Then they got to the absurdity of Floyd Mayweather going into women's boxing if he declares himself a woman. Do not say yes to that. Do not say yes to that, because they're going to hurt someone. And when they do,
Right.
you're going to lose the country even more.
100%.
Yep.
Then you're not protecting trans rights. You're walking them backwards.
And you know, I have been following Brianna Wu on Twitter, and Brianna Wu made the same point. Brianna Wu said, we have got to drop this men in women's sports thing. It is an absolute loser. There is no way that we can talk our way around it. There is no way that people are going to accept it. It is way too unpopular. And by continuing to try to advance this particular issue, we are hurting the transgender community because it makes us look crazy and like we're completely detached from reality. But what does Brianna Wu know, right? Anyway.
Oh my God. Oh my God. So imagine, guys, imagine if I had said, yes, I think Messi should transition. And I think that, Usain Bolt could transition and play in women's sprinting. But I don't think Floyd Mayweather. And I was honest about that. I've said before that I should have said the joke, Floyd Mayweather shouldn't transition because he's hit enough women in his life. And that was a total missed opportunity. But if I was like, yeah, no, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, not Floyd Mayweather. I mean, okay, but just not in boxing. Like every other sport, but like not boxing. Because like women are like fragile and stuff, and like they can't do that.
So right here we have.
Wait a minute. Did this woman watch the Olympics? Did she watch when that Algerian boxer basically defeated the Italian boxer in like 30 seconds? And the Italian boxer was so angry and she was crying and she said she'd never been hit that hard in her life. So is she denying that that happened? She probably thinks that that Algerian boxer is a woman, which the Algerian boxer is not. That was a massive, very, very potentially dangerous hoax that was played by the Algerian Olympic team on the world. And I was absolutely startled when I saw people buying into the talking point that that Algerian was a woman who was clearly not. And they didn't even try to hide it at a certain point. When the boxer was lifted onto the shoulders of his coach, which would never happen to an Algerian woman, not in a million years. The fact that this individual was running around Algeria without a head covering, and without wearing the traditional dress that women are expected to wear in countries like Algeria, or dressed in a suit or whatever. It is ridiculous, ridiculous. And we were all expected to look at this man and say, oh, sure, that's a woman. Yeah, just because some, doctor out in the sticks of Algeria identified that baby as female because they did a cursory look at the baby when the baby was born, and declared that the baby was female. Now, I do feel very, very sorry for that boxer because clearly there are a lot of issues there. But that doesn't mean that we allow him to beat up women and get rewarded for it. Those are two totally separate issues.
Francesca Fiorentini talking about how she is an alleged comedian and she should have made a joke at a moment in time months ago on Piers Morgan, which just goes to show you the level and caliber that she's operating at. And I don't want to ding all female comedians for this because, again, Francesca's comedian status is in fact alleged at this moment in time. But 2 months later for a comeback, not a very good representation of your comedic chops. Maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't allow men comedians to transition to females because they would absolutely obliterate people like Francesca Fiorentini. But also, I just want to point out, she is missing the entire point. Cenk is saying, don't sign up for Lionel Messi, don't sign up for Usain Bolt, which again is another one that's ridiculous. Usain Bolt is so much faster than men at sprinting that he was quite literally looking at the camera and smiling for the photo as he crossed the finish line because he was so ahead of the men. The idea that he wouldn't absolutely obliterate the women is absurd in every possible way. But Francesca,
I mean, when you consider that Caster Semenya was smoking the women in competition, imagine what Usain Bolt would do. I mean, it's ludicrous to even contemplate it. Ludicrous. But this is what happens when you allow your brain to become so pickled in, like, it's like a religion. It's like you take it on faith. You ignore the evidence, you ignore physical and material reality, and you end up like this Francesca person, actually making these ridiculous statements to a very, very small select audience. And you think that you did something. And meanwhile, you've got Cenk, who is hardly like a swivel-eyed loon on the right who is saying, wait a minute, this is crazy. And Anna too, which is why Cenk and Anna basically faced not exactly a staff uprising, but they've gotten so much criticism for being sane. I mean, this is what we've come to.
Tessa's brain is so damaged by left-wing ideology, she actually thinks Cenk is saying you should sign up for Lionel Messi, you should sign up for Usain Bolt, but then jump off the ship when Floyd Mayweather or a boxer comes up, when in reality, he's saying you should be logical about all of this.
What would it look like as someone who believes women are absolutely capable of boxing? What would it look like as someone who absolutely believes trans people should play in sports? What would it look like argumentatively to say 3 out of the 4 examples you are bad faith lobbing at me, I think could play as a trans woman, but this 4th one shouldn't?
Why? Why shouldn't the 4th one? Why not? Why not Floyd Mayweather? I don't understand. Why not? I mean, if you are willing to accept Lionel Messi, Usain Bolt, and whoever the other one was, but not Floyd Mayweather, why? What's the difference? Why not? Where is the internal consistency in the argument? If you really believe that all you need to do is stuff a man with some estrogen for 6 months to a year, and he can make the open declaration, and then he is female or a woman, or he is on par with the other women competing in whatever sport, in whatever category, then why leave out the boxer? Why? Oh, you did watch the Olympics. Oh, okay. All right. Is that it? I mean, we saw what happens when you extend this argument to its logical conclusion. You end up with 2 men winning medals in a female competition. So, okay.
Cenk thinks I should have not said that? Like, that's so fucking dumb. On every level, that's dumb.
Yeah, Francesca, you're the one who's being dumb. You weren't supposed to bite the bullet on any of those extreme examples. The fact that
I'm
you
glad she did, though.
shows that you are an extremist, that you're an absolute loonbag in every possible way.
And we're talking about a hypothetical. And this is the problem, is like, there are people, and I think like John Idarola, our good buddy, is one of them, who we argue this. And I don't take this tack. We argue this tack on, hey, you're using a hypothetical for a population that is about, 0.3% trans athletes, right? We're talking about less than a percentage point. Why are you distracting us with these issues? Why are you throwing up these hypotheticals?
They're not hypotheticals. I mean, maybe the examples that were given were hypotheticals, and maybe they were a bit extreme and absurd. This is not hypothetical. We saw what happened with Leah Thomas. We've seen what happened at the Olympics in both boxing and track and field. Maybe not track and field this time around, but I think it was the track and field event in Rio. We saw. I've read that perhaps all 3 medalists in the women's, I don't remember which running category it was, that all 3 of the women who medaled, all 3 of the women who were on the podium were probably not suffering from, I don't want to put it that way, but were probably, their bodies were in some way producing more testosterone than the average woman. They might all 3 have had internal testes. I don't know if that's true. It is true in the case of Caster Semenya. It is absolutely true in that case. The other 2, I'm not sure. But there were suspicions that all 3 of them had the same birth condition that the Algerian boxer has, or something along those lines, something similar. Caster Semenya, biologically, is male. Period. And that falls into a weird category where they were telling Caster that they had to take female hormones for X amount of time. You can give Caster Semenya female hormones until the cows come home, and it is not going to take away that innate advantage of testosterone production or anything else, any of the benefits that all that extra testosterone afforded Semenya. The height, the longer arms, maybe even the lungs, the heart, and everything else that developed like a man's. So let's continue.
This is all meant as a massive distraction and
No.
as a way to dehumanize, a population. Like
No,
that's
absolutely
a
not.
fine way to take it. But where I take it is, nah, man, I stand with trans people being able to play in sports. I see that
Nobody is denying that transgender people should play in sports. The question is, should transgender people be allowed to play against or play on a team that does not correspond with their biological born reality? That is the question. You can start a separate league. You can get the transgender athletes to compete against, if it's like male to female, to compete against men and probably lose if they've been taking hormones for X amount of time. But all that you need to know, Leah Thomas was ranked very, very low as a male athlete and started setting records when he swam against women, beating Olympians. And if you look at the height differential between Leah Thomas and the other swimmers, it was ludicrous. No wonder Riley Gaines was livid. I would have been too.
that you're doing a bad faith hypothetical, but I also stand with them. Even if you weren't doing a bad faith hypothetical, I would still stand with them.
Now, Francesca also gets angry that people throw out hypotheticals in order to assess people's positions, and I would just point out that a lot of left-wingers are very against the idea of hypotheticals, stretching a concept to its logical extreme in order to get somebody's position, because those are logical exercises and they don't deal in logic. Now, of course, because I'm the most generous man on the internet.com, and yes, I just bumped my microphone right there, I will give Francesca Fiorentini one bit of credit for calling out one of Jenk's positions that I find to be patently absurd and ridiculous.
But Jenk thinks that no, we gotta give them a win because then they're gonna stop coming. If I say that trans women shouldn't participate in collegiate or higher level of sport, they're gonna stop there. They didn't. They just didn't. Trump's executive order applies to all people.
Okay, I'm going to go off camera for a minute. I'll be right back. Sorry, guys. I drink a lot of water, like enormous amounts of water. So, all right, let's finish this up.
When we're talking children included, we're talking about high schools, we're talking about elementary schools. This is all people. These are the athletic bands that are coming down in red states across this country. They are for all. Specifically, they're focused on children. So,
you know that there are a lot of people who think that there is no such thing as a transgender child, right? Why are we bringing kids into this transgender thing? Why are we doing it? I really find the fixation on people like Francesca and people of her ilk to constantly rope in children who are not in a position to make decisions for themselves on any other topic and insist that they are somehow, even though they can't drink, they can't smoke, they can't drive, they can't join the army, they can't, do things that older kids can do. that they are in some way equipped to decide to change their lives in a way that may indeed end up being irreversible. I don't get it. And I find it very, very weird and creepy. And yeah, the executive order applies to all those levels of athletics. Should it apply to elementary school? Again, when I was in elementary school, I played against boys in sports. We had no choice. We had like 20 people in our class. So, I mean, even putting a sports team together during PE was nearly impossible because there were so few people in the class. And boys and girls do play together, as far as I know, in elementary school. But that's different from having a female team and a male team. That is not the same thing. It's not. And I would ask Francesca, hi, Jen. I would ask Francesca, you know what, Zarfax, you know, this is so funny. My aunt used to worry about that because she would sit there and she would watch me with a giant pitcher of ice water. And I would just drink water and drink water and drink water. And she would become convinced that I was going to develop water poisoning. And she would take my water away and I would get really angry. Keep in mind, I was in my 50s. And she's like, you're drinking too much water. No, come on now. Anyway, I lost my train of thought talking about water. It's okay. I'll probably remember it tomorrow.
Cenk's line up until this point has been, no, it's at the collegiate level and above. I think once you get to the college level and above, that's when it's bad. So he would be on board with what the NCAA said recently. But you're so dumb. You're so dumb. I don't even know how to explain it to you anymore. Unless, this is the other option, unless you also are a transphobe.
Cenk's position on how, at the college.
Okay, see, now this is where we get down to it. This is the way extremists think. You point out something that is a logical inconsistency in an argument, and immediately you're branded as being mentally ill. You're a transphobe. And probably a racist, too. Let's just throw that in for good measure. No. It's because you recognize biological reality. And you recognize the risks and the inherent unfairness of letting males play against females. Let's say post-puberty. All right? We have that case of that girl who developed a concussion playing volleyball against a team with a male player, and he spiked the ball, and he did some really, really serious damage to her. And everybody wants to pretend that that's not a problem. It is a problem. He was taller, he was stronger, and she is still suffering the consequences of that injury. It's very, very serious. But we want to pretend that that's not a thing. Of course it's a fucking thing. It actually happened.
In the professional level, we should not allow male to female transes to compete in sports, but at the high school level and beneath, we should, is absurd in every possible way. Now, of course, it's not for the reasons that Francesca lays out. It's for the much more logical reasons of the fact that high school and college sports received some level of public funding. Universities often get money from the federal government. In the high school level, you use those sports in order to compete with, in order to qualify for college sports. So it messes it up if you allow the transes in high school but not in college. But in addition to that, we just showed you how high school level boys that are under the age of 15 can beat professional female athletes and dominate them in a game when they play against them. So yeah, the differences are great in the high school level as well. But more importantly, the professional sports, those are private organizations. If you want to ruin your own professional sports league, even though I disagree with it, you should have the maximum right to do so at that level. Where you shouldn't have the right to do so is in the public schools funded by our tax dollars. Again, increasing injury risk where there is no opportunity for other girls to compete in other leagues. You can have a situation where a professional league allows men to compete in the women's division, but women could choose not to participate in that particular league. So Cenk's position is completely incomprehensible because it doesn't include high school and younger, but Francesca is just calling it out as being wrong for all the wrong reasons because she's not very smart herself. But I did want to make that clear because I do want to give people credit. And of course, I want to move on to Francesca calling Cenk the B word because that's how she handles her business.
What has it got you? What did it get you? When you go and fucking share a stage with Dr. fucking Phil, what did it get you? Nothing. You know,
When was Cenk on Dr. Phil? Or when did Cenk talk to Dr. Phil? I don't remember that. If anybody knows, let me know. Because this came as news to me.
why? Because you look like a bitch.
Uh-oh.
You know what I'm saying? You look like a bitch.
That's a great argument.
That's what it is. Like, that's just what it comes down to. You don't look like a fighter. You don't look smart. You look like a bitch. That's just the reality. I've tried to tell it to you nicely. I've tried to tell it to you cordially. I've tried to tell it to you on your show, on my show,
Thank you,
on
Rachel.
every show. And so either you A, are a bitch, or B, you actually agree with the right.
Okay, so in other words, because Cenk doesn't agree with her on a very, very, very sensible point that anybody who has taken biology in elementary school would agree on, then that means you need to emasculate him. That is just fantastic. Because she's out of arguments. She cannot make a logical argument, a fact-based argument. She can't do it. So this is what she turns to. This is what people in the community do too. Oh, okay. Well, I can't respond to you in a coherent and intelligent way. I cannot explain my position in a way that makes sense. So I'm just going to label you a racist or a transphobe or some other ist or phobe or whatever. It's ridiculous. This is why I can't take people seriously on this side of the argument. I can't. It's not about dehumanization. It isn't. It's about protecting women's rights. And the fact that so many women are jumping on this bandwagon is profoundly depressing.
And I'm starting to think, in fact, I do think it's the latter.
Yeah, Francesca, I just want you to know, you're a fool in every possible way. Here you have Cenk Uygur telling you how ridiculous you look on this particular issue. The polling ends up coming out, and it finds out that Americans, 80% of them, do not want biological males competing against female sports.
There it is.
And you're on the wrong side of that issue, and your arguments are absolutely terrible for why your position is correct, despite the fact that the American people can see this for themselves. They know it intuitively. They understand the purpose of female sports is to exclude men, and yet you're going against that with these weak-ass arguments, and then you're crying. You're throwing a hissy fit over the fact that not everybody wants to jump on board the sinking ship with you. Well, you shouldn't be surprised about that, and honestly, you shouldn't be mad about it. You should just accept the reality. You want to pretend like you're standing in front of marginalized folks, like you're taking a risk, then you can't be surprised when everybody else doesn't want to jump on board that sinking ship with you. You should just accept the reality that you are in the fringe, you have ridiculous positions, and you're an embarrassment in every possible way. Not cry about Cenk and say, don't say I'm one of your hosts just because I was at your company for years. I was never a full-time employee. When nobody cares, Francesca. Nobody gives a damn. Go team up with Mehdi Hassan. Go back to your Al Jazeera state-sponsored propaganda roots that is meant to sow discord in the United States of America, because we don't want to hear your absolute nonsense. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Francesca Fiorentini crying about Cenk Uygur.
I really like his channel. I think he's really good. He covers really interesting topics. He also covered a really pathetic topic. Not pathetic as a topic, but just a pathetic scenario. It's a guy, you briefly saw a thumbnail up there for the video. It's a guy who used to be a producer for The Simpsons, and 20 plus years ago he built a treehouse in his backyard, and it's a really cool, elaborate treehouse. It's very, very nice. He built it for his kids, and the guy lives in Sherman Oaks, and one neighbor complained. One neighbor. And so he has been fighting City Hall, literally. And now he's been told that he could face criminal charges if he doesn't take the treehouse down, which he's going to end up having to do because of one complaint from one neighbor. And, you know, going through this whole thing with the permits and all of this shit, you know, and it's a really, really sad story. So if you go to Actual Justice Warriors channel, you will see that video. And I was just watching it thinking, what a complete waste. It's very, very cool. It's a cool treehouse. It is not, it's not a problem for anyone. I don't know why this neighbor complained. I don't know if they were complaining that it blocks their view of whatever. But the guy has been fighting for years to keep that treehouse up. A treehouse that doesn't harm anyone. It's not structurally unsound. It's perfectly okay. But it's just another example of why California is so crazy and why it's going to take forever to rebuild the neighborhoods like Pacific Palisades that were destroyed in the fires. It's very, very sad. And I do have to ask myself, you know, Karen Bass was estimating that it could take like between, I don't even remember what she said, maybe up to 5 years. No, the situation in those burned out neighborhoods is so bad that between the permits, going through the red tape, cleaning up the mess, which is where we start, and then rebuilding, it'll take years to find, you know, enough contractors to come in and rebuild those homes. And the question is, how many of the people who were living in that neighborhood are going to rebuild in exactly the same spot? And I still don't know what the situation is with the fire insurance. How many of those homeowners had fire insurance? It's terribly, terribly sad. And as a matter of fact, Sean has been raising money, Actual Justice Warrior, for a guy who used to stream or used to upload under Atheism is Unstoppable on YouTube, and YouTube has put him through the ringer. Banned his channel, brought the channel back, banned the channel, brought the channel back. He's been going through a mess with YouTube for years. And his father, Devin Tracy is his name. Devin's father is a musicologist. He's South African. And the house burned down. Devin's father's house burned down. And in the house, Devin's father had an irreplaceable collection of African instruments, sheet music, recordings as a musicologist. He is one of the greatest experts on African music in the world. And all of it was lost in that fire. And it's really, really, really sad. And Devin's father and mother are not young people. So the question is, okay, well, if they rebuild, where will they rebuild? Will they have the will to rebuild? And I mean, again, it wasn't just the damage that was done to property. It was the fact that people lost photo albums. They lost mementos. They lost things that cannot be replaced. And that was tragic. It was awful. So anyway, you guys, please do read the article that I posted in the description box. Please do watch more of Sean's videos. He's terrific. He's a really good content creator, sort of a Nate the Lawyer-like content creator. He covers a lot of really interesting topics. I have been trying to find something a little bit more lighthearted and fun to cover, but that doesn't surprise me. And the total amount of property loss in Los Angeles, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine how hard it's going to be to claw back any of the money from these insurance companies, and how much will it cover anyway. I mean, even TikTok drama is really boring. Like, I've been looking at Marky's content. I don't care about the Lash drama with Bethany Frankel, or the wedding drama, which is usually good for a couple of chuckles. But the TikTok drama realm has been kind of sucky too. So anyway, if anybody has a suggestion, please leave it in the comments section. Once again, thanks everybody for being here. This was great. And I will see you guys the next time. If you're not subscribed, please don't forget to subscribe on your way out. If you want to share the stream, by all means do so. And I will see you guys the next time. See you later, guys.